Welcome to PUENTE Lab, a podcast where we have conversations around mental health. I'm your host, Dr. Jonathan Martinez, professor in the Department of Psychology at California State University, Northridge. My Puente Research Lab focuses on addressing mental health disparities in care for underserved communities, particularly for Latino families. The goal of our podcast is to create a bridge between science and the community. Today's guest is Spencer Valenzuela, a drug and alcohol counselor, a coach and trainer in combat sports, specifically a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and a professional actor. Welcome, Spence.
What's up, Dr. John?
How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Good. So glad to have you here. How does one do all of these different activities that you do, and what do you tell people you do?
I know that was a mouthful, huh? I look at all these things that I do, right, that you mentioned, as being of service. So no matter if it's, teaching jiu-jitsu or helping someone in the drug and alcohol field, a client, or personal training a client, I always take a service-based approach. And if I have that mindset, the task doesn't seem so overwhelming.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So like thinking of it as like if you are helping people with substance use issues, but then also if you're like much more of a coach and trainer in terms of boxing, MMA, it's also a service that you're providing. So there's like a thread there that's the same.
Definitely.
What about the acting sphere?
Acting, I could still take a service-based approach to my acting too, say I'm a supporting character or supporting actor in the project I'm working on. My job is to show up that day on set and support the lead, support the director, do what I'm tasked to do that day on set, even if it's not being the big star of the show or whatever. I have a job I got to do, and it's whether it's pushing the plot ahead or, preparing something internally to give my scene partner, something to work with that day.
Right.
It's still the same approach.
Right. There's still service to producing this higher level of art.
Right.
That maybe a lot of people don't see behind the scenes of like what goes into it.
Right. And, I think it takes the emphasis off me too. Right. And it puts the focus on someone else.
Yeah.
Right. Like currently, I'm training a woman. We started 3 years ago, who was battling breast cancer.
Mm.
And we got through that, right? We met when she was in the middle of chemo. Right. And here we are 3 years later, she's deadlifting, super heavy weight.
Wow.
Physically, she looks way different.
Right.
Her hair is growing back. And just recently, unfortunately, we got some news that her cancer metastasized again.
Right.
So it's like, how do I go back to how we were like 3 years ago, right? Like, how do I be of service to her in this time of need, right? It's like, I know I can't cure her cancer, right? There's a lot of feelings that come with it, like negative feelings, obviously whatever she's going through, but for me too, like I've built a relationship with this client, and she's no longer just a client, right? Like she's a friend of mine now.
Yeah.
So like we started last week, we got the news, and it was like, all right, how can I be of service to her? How can I make her day better, right?
Yeah.
Can I make her laugh? Can I make her smile, right? It's not gonna, take the gravity of the situation away, but maybe I can bring some levity into what she's going through, you know? And I try to do that with everyone. Same with my jiu-jitsu students or my boxing students, right? Sometimes people just, they're going through stuff, right? Like they're not training just for their physical exercise or their physical well-being. It's like what's going on internally as well, right? Like maybe they're having a bad day. How can I make your day better?
Right. What made you want to care so much, I guess, in terms of the service delivery area? Because that's something you can't really teach,
Right.
right? You can't teach someone to care. You can't teach someone to be empathic about what someone else is going through. So what was the motivation for you to care so much to want to help others?
I think you said the word right there, empathy, right? We go through our lives, right? We have our families or our careers, and it's all about us essentially, right? What's going on with me, right? Mm-hmm. So I try to put myself in people's shoes and embrace my empathy, right? I think, you know, as a child, whatever we go through in life, we can lack empathy, right? It's like I don't want to care about someone else. It's like what am I going through?
Right.
So now that I'm 40 and I've gone through a lot of things in life, right? I wanted to use my experiences in life to help somebody, right? Like, how can I use my experience, have empathy for someone else, and how can I help them?
Right. Yeah, I think that's really interesting, of like thinking of like our early experiences and how it's influenced, you know, the work that we do. And I sometimes see these two different approaches. Either people are doing or giving something that they didn't have themselves growing up, or they did get that help or mentorship from others, and it's this importance of like giving back. What was it for you?
As a kid, you know, not having that person there to be like, hey, you don't have to go this way. Like, you can go that way. Right. That's, you know, what wanted me to get into the drug and alcohol field was like my lack of resources as a kid and direction is what made me want to get into that field, right? And work with that population of like young teens.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there's something I could do that I didn't have as a kid that could maybe push this client or this teenager to go another way.
Right.
As opposed to like the way they're going now, you know, maybe help them see like, hey, this isn't the path, or this is my experience with this path. Right. Try to shed some light on it. And then, you know, people are going to do what they're going to do. Right. So it's more about, for me, like planting a seed, showing them there is a way out. There are people who care. There are empathetic people. And hopefully it's up to them to water it. Right.
Yeah. Do you notice that people ask you a lot of questions of like your experience or what your struggles were whenever you're in a helping role or helping capacity? It's like, I want to know, does Spencer get what I'm going through, and what's his experience, and what do you choose to share or not share in terms of like what's important to withhold and maybe have certain boundaries?
You know, it's funny because especially getting into like the drug and alcohol field, going through school, right? One of the things they would tell you is like, don't share your personal stories or experiences with your clients, which I didn't always agree with. I get why they do it, right? Because sometimes maybe you have a difficult client and they're going to take what you tell them and kind of throw it back in your face.
Right.
I get that, but I found it more valuable to open up and share. You know, you're not going to share every experience, right? But if there's someone going through something that you've actually dealt with, then I think it's a time to share that, right? And to, I guess, provide like a sense of hope, like, hey, I've been through this, I got through it,
right?
I know you can too.
I do hear that too, of like in certain training programs, it's like not disclosing information about yourself,
right?
And to me, like, that sometimes creates this barrier of like the person you're working with knowing that you were also a human being. You also have struggles. But there's also like this aspect of purposeful disclosure. Like, why am I giving them this piece of information? Because like you said, you don't want them to then view you negatively or throw it back in your face in some way. Do you find that, like, especially teenagers is a certain
tough group.
Yeah. Right. Do you find them like picking at you and asking you and like what you did and what your experience was like, and how do you share while also feeling okay with like setting up a boundary? Like, how do you navigate that, I guess, is like what you do want to share, because teenagers especially, they sniff in the room when someone is being inauthentic, and they want to know that you're a real person and that you understand what they're going through.
You know, using my own personal experience with sobriety, you know, being in recovery, that was something I personally looked for in like a counselor, right? I tended to gravitate more towards the counselor that did open up about maybe their alcohol or drug use, or the counselors that were in recovery, right? Like I knew that they were going to understand what I was really going through than say a counselor. And not to knock them, they're great counselors too. And this is just my own personal opinion. That a counselor who hadn't been through that, right? Like how I'm going to trust the counselor more that has that experience than the one that doesn't. And not to say the other ones are bad counselors. They're great counselors, great therapists. You know, like my own personal therapist, psychologist, I chose him for a reason. Because he's in that field.
Right.
He has 25 years of sobriety.
Wow.
He knows what it is on a daily basis to be an alcoholic or drug addict, right? Versus the guy who doesn't have that experience. And, you know, I remember being in institutions where they'd bring in like these young SC kids or these college kids that were in their programs, their graduate programs, and they were very nice. They were very knowledgeable. They were smart. And they'd sit there and like ask you their questions like you were some you know, guinea pig or like specimen, or they were studying in a lab or something, versus the counselor who had been in your shoes and just knew how to talk to you, man. Like, hey, man, you know, what's going on?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think there's this built-in credibility and trust. Like when we talk about dynamics between, you know, people that provide support and help, and the people that are receiving, like there's like this trust that needs to be developed over time. And I do see that as a problem many times of, you know, looking at this person as like, let me find out what's wrong with them or what their deficits are, or, you know, the diagnosis of it, without really thinking of them as like a full complex person that has real struggles. And then when you're able to connect and share that, that built-in credibility is so important for clients to see of like, oh, this person actually understands what I'm going to be, because they've struggled with some of these areas. And I do agree, like there's different people that provide care. It doesn't mean that you had to have that same experience. It's almost like, you know, you were talking about the woman you're working with that's suffering from cancer, unfortunately, right? And it's like, well, do you have to have cancer to be able to provide help? And it's like, no, but someone that has gone through cancer and is in recovery and other things, there might be some, you know, built-in credibility and help that could be provided at a different level. So it's almost like these different teams and networks of providers. Right. Sometimes you need the nerd and the person that's going to tell you what the evidence-based protocol is going to be, but that also is missing sometimes the connection with the individual.
I agree, especially like having that clinical approach, right? That's part of being a professional, right? And, you know, to go back, you were talking about how's it to work with, you know, teenagers, right? Yeah. I remember my first day going in there, you know, I wore pointy shoes, I wore slacks, I dressed like a professional, right? Yeah. And I went in there, dude, and they just ripped me apart, bro. Right. You know, bagging on me for my shoes. And I was like, oh, man. And I was really trying to force, you know, at that time, too, when I started, I kind of was being shadowed by a superior. And, you know, they just want to make sure you're going about the protocols. But then when I finally got some leeway, like I broke away from that, and they let me start running groups, and I really, and I'm sure you've had to deal with this, because like every client is different, every kid is different, every human being, every adult, right? They all tick differently, and so I really, you know, when I got some space to be myself, I was like, I'm just going for it. Right. Like I still dress nice, but I put on Jordans. Yeah. And I remember I came in with those Jordans, and they're like, oh damn. Right. I was like, okay, this is working now.
And
right?
it's you. It's being genuine
Right.
and authentic to yourself. But sometimes we think we have to be this professional version,
Right.
which is important, especially when you're being like shadowed and monitored. It's like, oh, let me make sure I'm dressed formally and I have the pointy, shiny shoes and I'm talking in a certain way.
Right.
And sometimes that could come at the expense of building that connection with the people you're working with. And like you said, over time, you found that you were able to infuse your authenticity into it. And especially for teenagers and boys in particular, that's, so important when you're talking about substance use and mental health and aspects like that. How do you have those conversations with men in particular that are struggling with their, wellness or struggling with sobriety or struggling with mental health?
Right.
Because very different than, especially like teenage boys.
Right. When I picked like the population I wanted to work with, which was young men, right? I knew from early on, like I didn't want to work with adults in like rehabs because I knew at that point, being a recovering alcoholic and drug addict, like I knew once you cross that threshold, it becomes more of harm reduction, right? It's like you either want this, you want to be sober or not.
Right.
Like, are you sick of going to rehab in your 30, 40, 50s, 60s? Do you want to change your life? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Right. So with the kids, I was like, I felt like I could use my experience, right? Having been in their shoes, and really try to, I went in there really gung-ho, like I'm going to do some damage, like, I'm going to save some lives, right? And that still hasn't changed, but like the reality kicks in, right? These are young men who come from, their backgrounds they're rough, right? Like they have a rough child or a rough family situation or no family.
Right.
There's drugs and alcohol in the home. Maybe it's a single parent. The whole kind of nature versus nurture thing, right? They live in tough neighborhoods. So the company I started working for specialized in these young teens, women, and or girls and boys. Pretty much they were in the foster care system, so no one wanted to take them in because their behavior was bad, right? And so they lived at this facility, and they were a tough group.
Right.
I was assigned 10 boys when I first got there, and I remember getting my case files that day, and just like I cried in the room by myself, dude, because just reading what they had gone through. Like these young men, like really didn't have a chance from birth. Just some horrendous things that happened to them, all different kinds of abuse, right? And they ended up in this home, this facility, and so when I went in there, and like I said, every kid is different. They're all going through different things, right? Some may be drugs, some could be sex trafficking, like prostitution at a young age,
right?
A lot of them have some form of mental illness, right, or co-occurring disorder, right, with the drugs and alcohol, and they're bipolar or schizophrenic. So it was like, whoa, like how am I going to help here, right? So the thing is, though, the kids that want help they'll let you know,
right?
The kids that don't are like, get out of here.
Yeah.
Right. Like but you can't give up on them, right? You got to keep pushing and pushing, and to answer your question, like coming from a Latin-based family, right? With my dad, who grew up a certain way, especially the whole machismo thing. I was taught early on, like not to cry, right? Not to talk about your feelings. Deal with it, but that only goes so far, as you know, right?
And then that's where these other outlets come in, because you're not able to deal with a lot of that, whatever we call it, mental health, emotional health, wellness. That why it's no surprise why young men then choose to abuse certain substances, because that's the appropriate outlet, like going out with your buddies and drinking and doing other things, like that's okay and that's what guys do. Oh, but sitting in a room and talking about like what your problems are and what's going on, like, no, that's a sign of weakness, right? That means something's wrong with you. That means whatever. I noticed that with teenagers and young men in particular, that many times they need role models that then can show like it's okay to talk about what you're struggling with and your mental health and your feelings and emotions. And unfortunately, when people don't have those male figures, they then choose other avenues to numb the pain or deal with whatever emotional issues that they're having. In turmoil.
Yeah, I mean, you use it as a tool, right? It helps you suppress memories, maybe trauma you've been through, right? It gives you courage, liquor, you know, right?
Right.
You know, when I was at that facility, there was one client in particular, and he was like the toughest one out of all of them, and he would not mess with me, right? Like, I remember approaching his room, and I'm like, you know, let's talk about marijuana, right? And he lit up right, and they're so, you know, the staff there they're not security, right?
Right.
Like, so they'll spark up right there, like right in front of you. Like, you're gonna tell me what? Like, you know what I mean? I'm just like, oh man, I gotta find it.
You're like, do I tell them to stop it, or is it like now we can talk and that's okay? And
right, and I felt defeated, man. You know, I was like young in the game. Like I said, I came in to do some damage, and like the reality check was hitting real quick. And for months, this kid just would not mess with me. You know, but I kept chipping away at him. Like every time I saw him, I'd just be like, hey, how you doing? Want to talk? No, F you. Get away from me. Okay. Right. Hey, how you doing? Want to talk? No, F you. Get away from me. Okay.
Right. What was the turning point?
Well, so I'm giving a group presentation one day or something, because I had to do weekly presentations with them about different drugs.
Right.
And, you know, and somehow, some way, my fighting experience came up.
Yeah.
And then that was it. He asked a question. I can't remember what it was, but I was like, that was the first time he's asked me anything, you know, or even wanted to engage with me with a conversation. So I'm like, that's my ticket in. And that's what I had to figure out with each one of these kids, was like, what's my ticket in with these kids? And they were all different. Some guys just wanted time. They wanted to spend time with somebody on the computer. Well, let me play you this song or whatever.
Right.
But this kid in particular loved UFC. Right. So I said, you know what? I'm going to bring my boxing gloves and my pads tomorrow. Right. Let's hit some pads. And he was like, okay. Right. Ever since that day, and I still talk to him this day, you know, he's out of that facility. He's doing well. But that was it. It was like, that was the connection right there. That little thing. I brought my pads, my gloves and my mitts, and we smashed pads the next day. And then ever since then, that's what opened the door. Right. You know, and then he'd let me be like, I'd be like, all right, look, I got to do a little bit of my spiel. You know, you got to let me do a little bit of my spiel. And he'd be like, all right. And then he'd listen, you know. It didn't change anything. He still smoked weed. Right. But
he saw you as someone that had an interest in something that he likes doing. And like I said, like this inherent credibility of like, oh, you've gone through sobriety issues, but then you're also in this area that I wanted more interest about, whether it be MMA or boxing or combat sports, and this outlet.
Right. And I think, as you know, you're a professional in the field, I think what helps is like, we got to think about these clients, patients, especially with those young boys. It's like every day they woke up, there was someone like trying to talk to them about their trauma, trying to tell them not to do drugs. Don't do this. Don't do that.
They've heard that over and over.
They just want someone to come in and be like a normal person with them. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Listen and not judge. Right. And not necessarily dictate and tell them, don't do this. What you're doing, you're right. They've heard it.
They've heard it all for years.
And it hasn't worked.
Before I've entered their life,
right?
They've been hearing this.
Yeah.
And probably when I exit, their life, they're still going to be hearing it,
right.
you know? So they're just looking for that, I guess I don't want to say like a getaway, right? But like just for a moment in time, they're like not in that place.
Yeah.
Right? Having to deal with what's going on in their life and getting their medication. It's medication time.
Right.
They tell you when to eat, right? Like you got to go to school. You got to do your homework.
Right. They hear that all the time from different positions of authority. Years. Right. And it's like, if they haven't changed now, the issue is not having another person to just be the broken record and give them the same message. Yeah.
Right. They need that empathy, man. They need that person that's, like you said, that's there to listen to them. And then I found myself to be more effective. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Integrating what you already do, like combat sports. What does combat sports mean? Like for, the typical person. Yeah. Like myself, like sometimes I hear MMA, I hear boxing, I hear UFC, I hear what is combat sports?
I mean, combat sports is just the big term, and like it's the umbrella, right? Combat sports, and then you can fit everything in that umbrella, right? MMA, boxing, jiu-jitsu, judo, wrestling.
So how do you get involved in that? Is it just like growing up? Because I'm not a fighter. I'm a nerd. Yeah. So like when I think of that, of like, was it because you grew up, getting into fights with people, and you're like, no, actually, I want to do this professionally in an outlet, or did someone put you there, or did you connect with a mentor? How did you get involved in combat sports?
Man, that's a great question, and there are nerds in combat sports.
Okay.
There's a lot of nerds. Dude.
Okay, so I could still do this.
I've had my butt kicked by some nerds, dude. Yeah, I mean, early on, right? My childhood was turmoil. Parents, divorce, right? I mean, there wasn't any like abuse or anything like that. Just, there was just a lot of fighting, and my dad left. He thought it was the best option at the time.
Right.
And, I started having behavioral problems. I think like any normal kid would, right? Like your whole dynamic has shifted dramatically.
Right.
And, you went from having your father figure in the house to not being there anymore. And then your mom, your mom's essentially a single mom working, long 10-hour days to take care of my brother and I. And like we talked about earlier, like you're looking for love in all the wrong places, right? You're looking for a father figure, validation, all those things, abandonment issues, right? So, I started acting out in school, getting in the fist fights and getting suspended. And my mom was just like, I don't know what to do, right? So this is about middle school, is when I really started to kind of like really act out. And so she put me in wrestling, right? And I had this wrestling coach who was from New York, and he was a crazy guy. Ex-heroin addict, and he'd tell you about it on the mats. Like, I used to slam heroin. I was like, I don't know why he did that to a bunch of kids, but he was a really good wrestling coach. And so that's how I got introduced to combat sports, was through wrestling. And then at the time, UFC was really big, like the early UFCs. So, there was a couple of my childhood friends that were doing jiu-jitsu, and we were getting in fights, and, next thing you know, I was at the park, got in a fight with a kid. I was wrestling at that point and was like, oh, I'm just going to take this guy down and take it to him. And next thing you know, I took him down, and my friends were waking me up. Like I got choked out.
Oh, you got choked out.
The kid knew jiu-jitsu.
Oh.
I fell into a triangle choke, and that's the last thing that happened. And the funny
is
part
it really that unexpected, or you're just like, don't even?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's especially if you don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
like, I had seen the early UFCs with Hoist Gracie doing this stuff,
right? But when you're in it,
you don't realize what's happening, right? Because you're not used to it.
You're just like coming to it, and all your friends are around you, like, hey, you
totally
right?
passed out. Whoa, what happened? And the funny thing is, I told that kid, I ran up to him like, bro, what was that? Right. Like, he was like, jiu-jitsu, dude. And I was like, oh. And the funny thing is, him and I became really good friends, like brothers.
So you had only done wrestling prior to then, and then this is where jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Okay.
So that was my first introduction to jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Getting put out with a triangle choke. And then I dabbled, right? I dabbled, but like it wasn't serious. And then, you know, my mom had put me in boxing too, so I had like experience with that. And but unfortunately, you know, like I went the other way, right? At the time, and let the partying and all that kind of stuff start to take over. And so my first time like signing up at a gym was about 20 years ago now. I was fresh out of rehab. I had moved to Pasadena to go to rehab, and I was like, this was like 2004, I think, maybe 2005. And my whole life had changed. I was newly sober. I like didn't know what to do with my life, right? I had gotten a job, and like a couple doors down was a jiu-jitsu studio, the Machados, and I went in there, and I was like, let me sign up. This is probably one of the best things I could do for myself right now.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And the rest was history. I started training like every day, you know, sometimes twice a day. And I was hooked, you know. It essentially became my new form of alcohol, you know, or drugs.
That's what I was curious about, of like, how does one even become a black belt in something? But it seems like this served this need that you had, that maybe perhaps substances was fulfilling, but you said it coming out of, you know, 20 years ago of like, okay, now I'm sober. Well, now I have this different life. Oh, how am I going to fill this need that I have now in this new outlet? And it sounds like, you know, quote unquote, you got addicted to this new need. Because how else do you become a black belt in something? So you're like a legitimate black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, legitimate black belt.
So you've been practicing this for how long?
I think I'm going on my 20th year this year. Yeah.
Wow.
I think 2025
Yeah.
will be my 20th. Well, we are in 2025, but at some point this year will be my 20th. Will mark my 20th anniversary.
So what is it that it does for you? Like why do you feel like it's this need that you have to practice jiu-jitsu?
I think originally I was looking for, I mean, there could be like cross addiction there, right? Like, I am an adrenaline junkie. I like to feel that adrenaline going in my body.
Right. So
that could definitely be something of it. But the other thing was like, I knew I needed some sense of discipline. And that's why I think martial arts is great for kids. Like if you have kids, put them in martial arts, because there's so many factors that come with it other than just discipline. It's, you know, humility, right? What's it feel like to get your butt kicked by someone that's half your size?
Right.
And that's what I was going to tell you earlier, like with the nerds. I remember the first time I was training with a purple belt, and he was probably $125, glasses.
Yeah.
And he was a student at Caltech.
Right.
And I was like, oh,
you're like, this nerd, I'll take this guy out.
I'm going to mop the floor with this guy. Dude, he whooped me within like a 6-minute period.
Yeah.
I think he choked me out or tapped me out every minute in that
Wow.
round. And I was so defeated.
Yeah.
But, you know, the humility that came with it.
Right.
And that was part of it, too, was like, oh, my God, like this little guy is mopping the floor with me. You know, I was like probably 200 pounds at the time. You know, and he's just taking it to me like I'm like nothing. So that was part of it too that hooked me, right? And I'd say the first year of jiu-jitsu, maybe first year and a half was pure hell, dude. Because you don't know any offense. You're still learning offense, so your defense gets really good before your offense. So you're just getting mopped by everybody for the first year and a half. And you know, that's why a lot of people leave, right? They just can't take it. It's like ego. So you learn to leave your ego when you walk into the dojo, right? It's like, get rid of the ego, be prepared to be, you know, humbled, the discipline of training. And then also I think, you know, I growing up, like I have a good few childhood friends, right? That I'm still friends with to this day.
Right.
Most of the people I ran with for a long time, they didn't really care about me, right? They cared about how much dope you got, or, just cared about getting high. That was the relationship, or like the bond. And once you took that away, like once I got sober, and I've gotten sober multiple times now, those people always left.
Yeah.
They weren't there.
Right.
They weren't there calling you,
Yeah.
like, hey, how you doing? Or no, it was like the guys and that was one thing, even through my active addiction, I never stopped doing jiu-jitsu. There were times where I got kicked out for showing up high,
Right.
They'd be like, dude, get out of here.
Yeah.
I can smell the liquor on your breath, or
Wow.
I was way too up on something,
Right.
and they could tell and be like, nope, you can't train today.
And then that's like punishment for you, because you're like, I needed this. This is what I wanted to do,
Like,
so I better clean up to then do this outlet that's so important to me.
Right. So I never gave up on jiu-jitsu, but the one thing that you do build through combat sports, it doesn't matter if it's jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, boxing, is like you're in there with your teammates, your sparring partners, your rolling partners, and you guys are shedding blood, sweat, and tears on the mat, you know? And when you build a bond like that, that's something that never breaks,
Right.
So it's like a lot of the time, if I, because I had relapsed in the past, right? I'd get some time, relapse. Who would be calling me? My jiu-jitsu friends. Like, where you at? Come train. The last time I got sober, the same thing. I was like in a halfway house, right? Just soaking my sorrows, feeling sorry for myself. And one of my good friends, he'd pick me up every day. He was teaching jiu-jitsu at a school in Monrovia, and he'd pick me up and be like, "You're helping me teach the kids class today." And I'd be like, "No, I hated him with a passion."
Right.
More because I hated myself at that point in time in my life, right? But I like hated him. I hated the kids.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to be here.
Do this shit.
I want to do this. But that's what I'm saying. He showed up every day, and talk about being of service, right? Like, he doesn't even know how he was of service to me in those early years.
Wow.
Right. And then, but there was too the discipline, like showing up for myself, not getting out of myself, going and teaching kids classes. Right. I can't be all up in here teaching a kids class. Like, I got to be present.
Right.
I can't be thinking about how I effed up my life royally. Right. Like, for that hour of time, it got me out of here.
I think that's important, is like having self-care activities that one does that gets you and removes you from your own headspace, right? Because many times when we're struggling, it's very isolating, right? And you think like, no one else understands what I'm going through, and it's almost like this pity party sometimes about you, and when you externalize that and think of others and how there could be like other self-care outlets for others, I think that's so important. I also like that you're talking about like discipline and humility, because I think that's so important, especially like people that practice, therapy and services. There's this whole concept around like cultural humility, like the clients that you're working with, positioning them to be the experts on themselves and educating you, and not thinking that you are this all-knowing expert that has all the answers and you're here to fix a problem. Humility goes a long way. And then the discipline piece, I just noticed, like, for me, I like, playing basketball, or just like lifting weight, getting outside of like doing something that's difficult and challenging, and devoting your everyday activities to that. Right. And of course, like, my inspiration is like Mamba mentality, right? That constant quest to be the best version of yourself. And like, what is it that you want to practice? And I think for kids, it's so important to introduce them to something, whatever it is that fits with them. Is it sports? Is it combat? Is it acting? Is it the arts? Right. And for you, acting is also a major aspect of what you do. You're a professional actor, right? What outlet does that serve for you?
I think they're, for me, if I'm looking at it, at everything, right? The combat sports, my struggles with addiction, right? In the past, my acting, it's all the same to me, man. It's like I like to go up. You know, I like I said earlier, that feeling of adrenaline, right? And
right.
When I walk out into the ring or the mat, it's like a huge adrenaline rush, right?
Right.
When I walk out on stage,
right.
it's a huge adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
And you know, and then to feed that into my addiction too, right? When I was actively in my addiction, it's a huge adrenaline rush, right? Like before I even got high, you know, like just when I'd make the call to pick up the bag, it was like I felt a sense of relief and adrenaline at the same time, right?
Right.
And then, you know, when I walk out on stage, there's this huge surge of adrenaline.
Right.
You know, I did a theater play this year, and I remember walking out on stage, looking into the stands, and being like, "Oh my God, there's like 50 people, 60 people watching me right now."
Right.
And I've done even bigger ones. I've done one where I think there was like 200 people in the crowd, and you walk, and it's almost like that. And I think this is part of it too, like the whole fight and flight thing is like I'm addicted to too, because I see those people, I want to leave.
Well, that's what had me thinking, because that's interesting. You connected the dots with all these different fields that you're in, right? Like substance use counselor and acting and combat sports. There is something to be in front of people, having to perform and having this fight or flight, like fear-based emotions that are driving you. So how do you manage your fear? Like, just like, let's contextualize it within like a fight.
Right.
And like bell sounds, like to me, that's like, I could never imagine doing that. Right. Whereas like when I talk about giving presentations to hundreds and hundreds, people are like, "Oh, that's so fear." How do you respond to fear and manage it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, because fear is part of it, right? Whether it's on stage or on set, in the ring, speaking in public, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to sound cliche because you hear this all the time, but I think it's valuable. It's to breathe, man. You got to breathe. And not only, I think that takes care of the physical aspect of the anxiety, because the anxiety is there, right? So it's like breathing, settling in, and then using that angst in a good way, not letting it overtake you, right? Because that can happen. And I know there's like a performance anxiety graph, right? That applies to everything, right? Just life, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you know, you don't want to be too far on this side because then you're not amped up enough, right? You want to be in the middle, because if you cross over that barrier, then it's too much.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like finding that good line. And so that's like the physical aspect. And then it's the mental part, right? It's like learning to control your emotions, your thoughts, and that also is in turn taken care of by your breathing.
Right.
The more I can calm my mind down, the more, and for me too, there's a big spiritual side, right?
Okay.
There's a big where I kind of leave it up to the heavens, man. Like if it's God's will, it's God's will. If I'm getting knocked out today, I'm getting knocked out. If I'm knocking him out, I'm knocking him out.
Yeah.
And that's just the game. As far as fighting goes, right? Like, that's what it is, right? You got to accept that part of it as far as the fighting goes. And for the acting, it's the same thing. It's like you got to get out there, you breathe, and let it go.
Right.
Like, I'm gonna be okay by the end of this, no matter whether I drop my lines or not, right? Because that's frightening to be on stage and drop your lines with, like, it doesn't even matter if there's 100 people looking at you.
Right.
If there's one person looking at you,
you
know, and you got to remind yourself, like, the audience doesn't know your lines. They don't know what you're going to say.
Right.
Only you do and your scene partner.
Yeah.
Or maybe someone knows the script. I don't know. Or they've read Shakespeare before and they know what Gregory says in Act 1 of Romeo and Juliet. But it's rare they're going to know, right? And I had that happen this year when I did a play. I was like, it was opening night, and I went out there and I just dropped my lines bad. And not only did I drop one line and my partner got us back on track, but I dropped the next part. And when she got us back on track, I jumped to a completely other part of the scene. So it was like a whole chunk of the scene was just out. But in my head, I'm just like, oh, you stupid. you stupid F, you know,
Yeah.
like, you've just ruined this
Right.
while the play's going on. And
that-
I'm like, luckily there was a break in the play where everything kind of freezes in time and my character freezes. And I was just sitting there beating myself up the whole time. Like, you stupid, you know, you stupid piece of.
But now that's going to impact the continuation of what you need to do.
Right. So
if you're lost in your head.
So in that moment, we were about to get back on, and I'm just like, big breath, let it go.
Yeah.
Let's kill this second act, or let's kill this third act.
Yeah.
And
Mistake happened. Don't let it overtake it. Right. That's interesting. I think that's important because what I see that you're doing is like mindfulness, present, focused, you know, relaxation, breathing, which is so important because we get lost in like worrying about the future or, you know, being anxious about the past, whatever it may be, that there's now an opportunity for course correction. Yeah, I messed up. I failed, whatever. I blew it, but I still got to continue down this path of delivering whatever it is that I'm doing.
Definitely. I think being present is huge, and we could all benefit from it, right? It's like a lot of, and it doesn't matter what it is. Like, you're sitting in your office with a patient or a client.
Yes, right.
You have to be present and listen, right? If I'm on stage, I have to be present and listen, right? If I'm in the ring, I have to be present. I can't be in the past, right? Like living in the past, like especially with addiction, right? Like we do, people in recovery, like we do things, right, that we aren't proud of.
Right.
And it's easy for us to live in the past and have a lot of morbid reflection.
Oh, right. Interesting.
Right. And it's easy to be in the future too. Like, oh, I just ruined this scene.
Yeah.
I'm going to ruin the next one. What is that? That's morbid projection. And nothing can take you out of the moment better than both of those. Morbid reflection, morbid projection. Right. So it's like, I'm in the present. Right. I gotta find a way to stay present. Not just in those situations, right? Whether it's a client, you're in the ring or you're on stage. It's just with life, like especially there's so much going on, so much uncertainty with life right now that everybody's facing, right?
Yeah.
And it's so easy to get caught up in that. But just to actually sit down and take a breath and be like, okay, I got a roof over my head. I got food in the fridge, right? Whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Can really ground. So that's a big thing for me, is for grounding myself in any situation, is staying present and having gratitude for the present moment.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, if you see what's going on in the world right now, you know, Ukraine, what's going on here in LA, right? With the fires, like, just to sit down and be like, you know, my house is okay, right?
Right. Yeah.
What can I do
for
to
others?
maybe go help these other communities. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
That for me is a huge tool, man.
I'm learning something today from I like the way that you conceptualize it, of like morbid projection, morbid reflection.
Like today I don't have it that bad. Right. There's other people out there that have it a lot worse than me.
Yes. I think gratitude goes a long way as like another self-care outlet of like thinking what we have and how can we be grateful for what we've been given and what position we're in.
Right.
And then how do we leverage that to move forward and help others too.
Right.
And then earlier you were talking about anxiety, and I like that, you know, performance anxiety. And because I think there's this misperception that we're not supposed to feel anxious,
right? Or
especially as men, you're not supposed to show that you're afraid or fearful. Right. But if anything, what I was noticing is that you use it to your advantage, right? Like the goal is not to rid ourselves of anxiety, but know when it's too overwhelming, because if it's too much anxiety, then performance is going to be off.
Right.
But if you're not anxious, like anxiety is there from an evolutionary perspective to get us moving and doing something. And sometimes we need a little bit of anxiety to get us moving and going.
Yeah. I think a big problem too is like with having been in institutions, right? Mental institutions, we're so quick to give pills, right? Xanax, Ativan. There's people that do need it, right?
Yeah.
And I've always been an anxious cat from childhood. Like I've always just wanted to jump out of my skin, right?
Yeah.
like even now when I sat down, I started to feel the anxious a little bit, right? And I think we need to learn as men too, like how to deal with it, right? And it's a physical reaction. It's in your body, right? So it's like, go do something physical. Like go get a shovel and dig a hole in the front.
Right, yeah.
I think one of the best things my dad ever taught me, right, was like, he was a real hard ass about getting up every morning at like 6 a.m. Like, you know, if you're not going to be good at school, you're going to do construction.
Right.
And he'd be getting me up and just tell me to dig a hole. I'd be like, why? Don't ask me why.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Do
it.
Yeah.
And I would, right? And then I kind of took that concept and principle throughout my whole life. And it was like, all right, I'm sitting here, I'm doing anxious. Let me go for a walk around the block, or let me go shoot hoops.
Yeah.
Let me go for a run. Like, let me get this out of my body.
That's so important.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Like for me, the first thing when I wake up, and especially with kids, like I go to bed early. So like I'm up at like 5 a.m. And like sometimes I'm like, okay, they're not going to be up till 7. I got 2 hours. And I wake up feeling anxious a lot of times. Like, oh, I got to do this. I got to do that. But I think of it as like academic work I'm supposed to be doing. But to me, it's the physical piece. I need to go to the gym and just lift heavy weights.
Right.
I need to just go play basketball or I need to go on a run. I need to get this. And then it just kind of sets me up for the day to then be more present, focused. Because if all of that pent up energy is there, then when I try to do my work or talk to others, I'm just lost in my own head. Right. I'm not there. Right.
I think from like an evolutionary, like you said, perspective too, is like, it's so important to do something physical because especially with people like in recovery, I always preach this to guys I see that are newly sober. Get a gym membership, dude. If you can't afford one, go for a 3-mile run like every morning.
Right.
You know, we do so much damage to our brains. We don't really realize the damage we're doing. And, you know, I mean, you know more about this than I do, but you know, your brain takes a toll, right? Your receptors get shut down. The whatever drug you're doing, right? Hard drug, it prevents you from creating more dopamine, more serotonin on a natural level.
Yeah.
So how do you get that back, right? How do you do that? How do you deal with your depression or anxiety? It's like you got to get up, like you said, and get moving, man.
Yeah.
You gotta smash heavy weights. You got to.
And like you said, for some people, they might do all of these things that we're talking about, and maybe the only thing that could help is medication. Right. And that works too. Right. But I will say there is this tendency to think of the quick fix and that somehow medication is the only outlet, right? Versus putting in that day-to-day time of whatever activity that's important to you and having the discipline to do it every day. I think that's like so important, right? In terms of the physical aspect. Now with the acting, where does the physical piece manifest in acting?
As an actor, your body, your voice is your tool, right? It's different. If you look at different kinds of artists, right? Actors, musicians, painters. A musician can pick up his guitar, his bass, his drums, and fiddle.
Those are the tools, right?
Right. He can perfect his craft like on a daily basis almost. Same with the artist.
Right.
Whether they're painting or whatever they do, they can pick up a paintbrush and paint every day, or draw, or pick up a pencil. As an actor, you're kind of waiting around for auditions, right? Like you're waiting, but you got to find a way to be proactive, right? So it's like, you know, sometimes I'm with my wife and I'll just like get weird. I'll start talking in a different accent, like pretend I'm someone else.
Right.
I'm practicing my craft, right?
Right.
Sometimes I'll go to Target and maybe this sounds weird, but I'll talk in a different accent.
Yeah.
Like for an example, like I did something recently, indie film where I kind of had to have a little bit of a twang, right? Like it took place in Utah. So it was like, the only way I'm going to get comfortable speaking like this is in public, talking to random people at a Target. Like when I'm checking out, I'm going to speak in the accent or whatever it is. You get what I'm saying? Because I need to practice it for it to sound good in real time. Like you just can't be like, okay, I play an Irishman I'm gonna show up on set that day and just do it. Like,
right.
That's not how it works.
It is very physical now that you're painting that picture of how you do it, right? Yeah, that's interesting.
And breath work is huge, right? You know, you're sitting there for them to yell action or whatever the director's doing, and you're like, oh, yeah. You know what I mean? You have that angst, like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, right. Oh my God, am I gonna do this? Or, you know, am I gonna pull this off? Or so again, like deep breathing. You know, take, and then, you know, this is something I learned early on, like pre-sobriety versus now. Was like when I was in theater school doing early plays early on. Like, dude, I was a mess, bro. I had a bottle of booze like in my backpack, drinking the minute I got off stage, drink, and then I go right back on stage. Oof. You know, or at rehearsals I'd run off. I remember I was doing a play in Pasadena, and they were having rehearsals in Old Town. And when we go on our like 15, 20 minute breaks, I'd run down to the bar. And I'd be there for 30 minutes, 40, and they'd be texting me, "Where are you?" Like, I'll be right back, you know?
Right.
So that was the wrong way to do it.
Yeah.
Right? The totally wrong way to do it. Right?
Because it's like you're trying to mask the anxiety and pain, and then now you're embracing it. You're like, I don't need this.
Right.
This is going to lead me down a path that I know is not going to end well.
Right.
Right. So there has to be change with like embracing that anxiety and being okay with it, whatever it is, that fear, and then using it to your advantage.
Right.
Like you said.
I mean, you hear a lot of like famous actors, right? A lot of them are sober, you know, they'll talk about it. Tom Hardy, Gary Oldman, you know, they're all sober. But then there's other cats you see on TMZ that aren't sober, right? They're getting smashed every night or going out to the bar,
right?
You know, and now that I'm sober, it's like I really, I need my sleep, dude.
Yeah.
Before we film, like I need 8 to 10 hours of sleep. I'm in bed early. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't sleep that night. I got a little bit of angst, right, about the next day, but at least I know I'm in bed. You know, I'm hydrated. I'm eating healthy.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way to do it now.
Well, you're in it for the long haul.
Right.
That might work in the short term, because you always think of like the artist that's also
like Ray Charles slamming heroin.
And it's like that's not sustainable.
No.
Like if we want longevity in the craft that we're doing, like that might work for a certain circumscribed period of time, but over time, what's the change in the outlet that's going to continue you doing this craft? You know, circling back to our, you know, earlier conversations in my introduction of you of, you know, I was asking you like, how does one do all these different areas? And it's interesting because I thought of them as so separate. And, you know, the constant theme that I see now of how these roles are all connected for you, right? In the service of giving to others, whether that's in the, you know, drug and alcohol field, whether it's in more of the training and coaching and combat sports field, whether it's in acting. I just want to say that I'm very proud of you in terms of the work that you do, and very proud to call you, you know, my friend. Yeah. And you're also someone that has, you know, helped me too in terms of different situations that we've been in that I'm very grateful for. So there's some gratitude that I want to extend your way.
Man. Yeah, we go way back, dude. You knew me back in the day, and you know me now. You know, you saw the turnaround. So
yeah.
And you're still in my life, dude. So, you know, that means a lot to me, you know?
Yeah. Is there a take-home message that you want to give given some of our conversation?
Yeah, you know, I'd say we're in uncertain times, you know. Life is uncertain. The best thing you can do for yourself is get out there, be active, communicate too, you know, open up, lean on your friends, right? If you're going through something, you know, I had a really good friend of mine commit suicide this last year, and it was shocking, right? It was like, whoa, like him, like you never think he'd do it, you know, like that. We all looked at this person as a pillar of strength, and by far one of the gnarliest guys I've ever met. You know, your brother had the pleasure of meeting him and putting him in one of our projects, Spanky, you know, and just a really good dude, right? Yeah. And it really hit me hard that he took his own life, and it was like all these questions, right? Like why would he do this? Like on paper he had a great life, you know, I just think as, as men, like we're not open enough, right? We're not telling you don't got to tell everybody, right? You don't got to dance with everybody, but find the couple people you can dance with and be honest with them, really open up, tell them how you're feeling. Right. And, because life is good, man. Even in these hard, uncertain times, we still have blessings, right? You have kids, your wife, family, right? So just open up, pick up the phone. I know sometimes picking up the phone is like the hardest thing to do.
Right.
It's I think something as a man that you have to practice doing.
Yeah.
If I didn't get sober, I don't think I would have learned how to do it. And even in early sobriety, I had to learn how to pick up the phone, because sometimes that phone feels like 1,000 pounds, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to hit call.
Right.
But sometimes that call could be the thing that sets you free, man.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's where strength lies, right? Being strong enough to put yourself in a vulnerable situation. And like you said, showing compassion, gratitude, checking in with one another.
Having empathy. Right?
Yeah.
I know sometimes empathy is seen as a weakness, but it's not. It's actually a great strength to actually empathize.
Thank you, Spence. Appreciate this conversation. Thank you for joining us today. To access more mental health content and resources, please go to puentelab.com. Until next time.